Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and in this episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show, we talk about D&D Essentials, Acquisitions Incorporated, the book, and Jordan has a TPK. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and I am joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Say hello, sir.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're ready for a Saturday morning. I bet you missed us last week.
Yeah, I missed us last week. I was like,
I missed us.
So sad. And we're like, a little bit of grief for not doing a Saturday Morning D&D Show on Free RPG Day. But It was fun for me to be able to go to Free RPG Day and pick up some cool stuff, of which I picked up my store only allowed you to pick up one copy or one free RPG. They wanted to make sure that they had enough for everybody who showed up. And so I picked up the Kids on Bikes one, which is really cool. And on the back of the Kids on Bikes one, they teased that they're working on a new game called Teens in Space. And I am like super excited for that. Using the same like rule set and stuff, but you're in space and it's going to be all sci-fi and awesome. So that'd
be really good.
Yeah, that'll be really fun. And I have no idea. I couldn't find any more information on it other than there were a few tweets from the creators who were like, "Oh, cool, we can talk about it now." And then that's about all I've seen. But It said 2019, so I'm assuming maybe towards the end of the year that'll be released.
Yeah, I love that show Lost in Space, and even the new reboot one they did on Netflix was really good. And that was cool because it was teenagers and young adults viewpoint of on some big space exploration, and then something goes wrong. Mm-hmm. Wow, what a cool adventure. If you have a rule set, you could play through something similar in that vein. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'd love to play that.
No, yeah, it's really awesome. So did you do anything for Free RPG Day? Did you end up going to your store or?
Nope. We were doing a camping event.
That's right. Yeah, so you were out of town, which is why we didn't have a show. This is all coming back to me now. It's all coming back to me now.
It was pretty good, but I was definitely thinking about the show all that day, thinking all the stuff we could be talking about or what games we had played, or I was already thinking about my next game that I was going to be playing on Monday. So D&D has definitely been on the brain in the last few weeks, which has been really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I guess news-wise, I found this book today. So that's really exciting.
Yeah. What? How did it just pop up?
Oh, you have it's like right there. So Acquisitions Incorporated, the merger between Penny Arcade and Wizards of the Coast is out. You can go pick it up now. It was released the 18th of June, I believe. And I got the special edition one. So I ended up getting the Acq Inc Green Flame pin, which is really cool. I put it on my dice bag next to all my other pins. I think my goal is to like cover my dice bag in like D&D pin paraphernalia. So I'm really excited. But have you dived into it? Have you read anything about Acquisitions Incorporated yet? Just a little bit?
A tiny bit. Now, I'm a huge fan of Acq Inc. I've been watching the show that's been going on, especially like C-Team stuff. And I feel like as much as the original game is Acquisitions Incorporated, this also feels really C-Team-ish to me.
Yeah.
Also, so I've just dove in really well, and we've heard a lot about it up until now, but I have not read it cover to cover yet. I've been waiting to just sit down. It might happen today where I get to sit down and just read it from cover to cover, because already I read a paragraph, and from just one paragraph, I was rolling around laughing and enjoying it so much because I love the humor that they write with. I love Penny Arcade's humor.
Yeah.
And Penny Arcade's humor is in this book, so it's just so good. I thought there was one or two things that stood out to me, so I thought I would. But what about you? How have you gone from cover to cover already? Or have you just kind of flipped through and looked at different things? Are you about to ready to run an Acquisitions Inc. campaign?
So I read most of it, except there's an adventure from 1 to 6 in there, and I did not read that because, again, we were talking at my table of potentially running that adventure. Sorry, I have the hiccups. Potentially running that adventure, so I was like, well, I'll hold off and I'll read it later, kind of a thing. So I read through all of this stuff, but and it is set up to have you run a franchise of Acquisitions Incorporated in your game. And literally any game you play, it could be focused on that, or that could be like on the back burner, but you're adventuring for a reason. And one part of the adventuring is to acquire more loot and make yourself stronger. And you do that under the guise, I guess, of this corporate world. What I really liked about it is that it doesn't have to be Acquisitions Incorporated. You could take a lot of these rules and a lot of these proficiencies and apply them, and then basically say we're our own adventuring group and things like that. And so I don't know. It was interesting with Matt Colville's Strongholds and Followers coming out, the Ghosts of Saltmarsh boat stuff, and this has some things about creating basically a home base. I think using all three of those books, you could use those books as a really good tool set to creating like a home base, or in my case with Ghosts of Saltmarsh, maybe my players inherit some kind of a ship and that is their home base, and then they travel out from there. And so I want to use a lot of this stuff, and it has upkeep, like this is how much money it takes to keep your place going and things like that, and to staff it. There's lots of cool things. And then there's new backgrounds. There's a new race. Did you know that?
Verdun.
Yeah, the Verdun or Verdun. I didn't know that there was a new race until I bought the book on D&D Beyond, and I was flipping through and I'm like, what is this? And then I was reading about it, and it sounds really cool. Makes me want to listen to the C Team. So I actually started from the beginning of the C Team, and I'm on episode like 7 or 8. I've got like way too much to listen to, but I was like, now I'm really kind of sad that I didn't keep up with the C Team, because there's like a lot of inside jokes in this book that I can tell that that's a joke, or that's like a nod to something, and it's kind of over my head. So I was like, anyway, but I'm enjoying the C Team, because I remember you were saying that you're like, get past the first like 2 or 3 episodes and then it really picks up, and you are correct. Jerry is a really great DM, and the show really picks up if you just kind of let them figure each other out and get the rest of the show kind of figured out, because they were new to streaming and stuff.
Yeah, I talked to some friends that had watched like just the first episode, and he starts off the C Team in a very Alice in Wonderland, very, even for Dungeons and Dragons, kind of very weird place. Like you're not quite grasping and latching on to what the reality is here. You don't know what's going on, and it seems very odd. But once you get past that and you find out the hook to what those first 2 or 3 episodes are about, and then it moves into a regular Dungeons and Dragons campaign, kind of set in the Forgotten Realms as viewed by Jerry Holkins. Yeah. It just gets better and better. He is a master storyteller, and he's taken this with humor and the ability. He's just a crazy wordsmith too. Like when you listen to him describe things, he describes things like nobody else describes things. And it's very evocative and a very different style to look at. And I think the thing I loved about it is it showed not only is there the Mercer style, the Jerry Holkins style, the Adam Coble style, the Matt Colville style, it just helped reinforce that there's so many different types of D&D Dungeon Masters styles that it let me be more comfortable about what my style might be. And it might be a hodgepodge of different things, but I don't have to be like any one of those people. There's no right way to do it. There's many different ways that you can run these games. And I think it's really cool. I was thinking too, I want to jump on anybody that wants to run a campaign that's Acq Inc. and have a player who wholeheartedly wants to dive into, I want to be part of a Acquisition Incorporated franchise. Like I buy into the whole thing. I buy into the corporate humor. I as a player, I would love to do that. But as a dungeon master, I was thinking about flipping it a little bit, using the material, but have it be the bad guys are an Acq Inc franchise that somehow bump into the normal Dungeons and Dragons party, or they get hired as proxies, not knowing who they're working for, when in reality they're working for a franchise. So they meet the different people. That it's all NPC based, and it's kind of all things they interact with, even if they're not part of the franchise, but they're working for the franchise, or they're contractors that the franchise brings on, or come at it from that kind of angle too, where it's mostly the NPC stuff. But I think that'd be cool too, of a way to put that in there and have it bump into your normal tropes of adventuring parties. There's so much in here. One thing that I thought was even funny, just sums the whole thing up. They go through and they talk about the classes and how you might twist or change them or flavor them just slightly enough to make them feel like they're in the same kind of world that Jerry's kind of presenting to us in
this
these
corporate world, corporate fantasy.
And the first one starts with barbarians in the corporate world. And it's like they have a picture of the corporate barbarian. And it's just like, he's got his shirt and his tie, but he's got his axe. I'm just thinking, this is the funniest thing ever. And that's just even a little bit about what's in this book. There's vehicle rules in the book. There's a new race, like you said, backgrounds. There's an adventure. I mean, you get everything you can.
New spells, new magic items. It's chock full of stuff. So, and the spells are funny where it's like one of the spells is like inflate price, and you cast something on an item to make it look better than it is, so you can sell it for a higher cost, more gold than it's worth. And I was like, that's funny. So just like little things that if you really want to be the treasurer of Acquisitions Incorporated, maybe you're a wizard and you take that spell, or you're a bard or something, and so you gloss up everything before you sell it. I liked that a lot. It's really cool.
I like that it's a collaboration between Wizards of the Coast and the Acq Inc team. So in the credits, they talk about how both companies kind of came together to build the book. It lists Mike Krahulik as one of the art directors. So he's one of the people that definitely were in there, and he did the cover art. So if you like his artwork, it's right on the cover there. And, all the different writers that are there, they even list the full cast, incorporated cast. Ben Wynn's on the cast. That's pretty good. I know a lot of people we talked a little bit about that in a previous show. It's got all the people that they have listed there: Jeremy Crawford, Christopher Perkins as the Dungeon Masters. So pretty cool. All in all, 224-ish, 25-ish page book. It felt big enough to me to give you the real kind of feeling of an Acquisitions Incorporated world. I think if it was a different world completely than his version of Forgotten Realms, it might need to be a tiny bit bigger. But I think this just flavors Forgotten Realms the way you needed it, so you can still use Forgotten Realms materials and all the stuff that gives you information about all these other locations, but then use this to flavor it, and it's probably the perfect size for that.
Buy the Sword Coast Adventures guide in this, and you're good for like a Acq Inc Forgotten Realms. Like the main headquarters is in Waterdeep, and you know where Waterdeep is, and you know how to navigate around the Sword Coast and things like that. So yeah. It's really cool.
I thought it was interesting too. I saw Matt Colville, and I just went and checked my mailbox because I got a message from Colville, MCDM Productions. Shipping has started, so we may be getting our physical books within the next day or so. Maybe some people have it.
There's some people on Twitter that have been posting that they got their books and stickers and stuff. So I'm excited for that. I'm
anxiously looking for that. But he put up I didn't even put it in our show notes, but I thought maybe I'd throw it out there. He put a very interesting tweet out earlier this week that said, has Wizards of the Coast released an official campaign book yet? And he said, it's not a trick question. Have they released an official campaign book?
Like a campaign setting book?
Right.
I would say Sword Coast Adventures Guide and Ravnica, but
that's what they all kind of said. But what's the official one? But whereas Sword Coast isn't all of Faerun, or it's not, there is no Forgotten Realms campaign book, which was very interesting. So he was wondering, like, if you were going to try to tell a new player, here's the default campaign, and here's the book that tells you all about the campaign world of Dungeons and Dragons, where is it? And I thought that's interesting that they haven't done it, because they've gotten away from mostly campaign books and described their default campaign through their adventures. Though even in the adventures, they say, you can use this in Forgotten Realms, you can use this in Eberron, you can use this in whatever. So I thought it was an interesting change to see that, because he was looking for an actual Forgotten Realms campaign book, and there isn't one at the moment, which is interesting. We're how many years in, and there's no Forgotten Realms campaign book.
But I wonder if it's the same thing with like those Eberron books, where the older books still work for 5th edition, as long as you have the 5th edition races and classes and things like that. Like, there's nothing innately Forgotten Realms that needs that campaign. You can buy a 3rd edition Forgotten Realms campaign setting, or the 2nd edition Al-Qadim Zakara setting, and and you get everything you need to run a game in there, because you get cities and you get, you know, jobs and NPCs and things like that. You just have to slightly tweak them to make it work with 5th edition. But I mean, I did that. Like I set my players in the desert and took them to Al-Qadim and stuff, and that was really fun.
Well, and we know that's kind of Keith Baker's look on it, but I don't know if that's necessarily their look on it.
Yeah, and I don't know, but you're right. I don't know, but I think that information is still there, and those books are still available as PDFs. Can find it
for sure. Yeah. So. But it was interesting when he asked, point me to the book or the release of it. And I thought that was, and if we said, we could say Sword Coast, right? But that's such a small area of Forgotten Realms in reality. When you look at, it's like one small corner of a northern coast, and there's so much more out there that we have to go back to the old material to check on. It's interesting that we haven't touched on a lot of those other places yet. So I thought it was interesting because there was a lot of people that were going back and forth. I put in there, you know what my response to him is the Dungeon Master's Guide. And I quoted the paragraph out of the Dungeon Master's Guide that says the Dungeon Master's Guide is how you choose your campaign. It talks about what type of campaign you want to choose, what are the choices you might have if you're going to make one of your own, or if you're going to use one that's already been established in the past. So really the Dungeon Master's Guide, I think, became the campaign book. And we missed that. We all keep thinking of the Dungeon Master's Guide, like the old Dungeon Master's Guide, is a bunch of rules and how to run the game. But in reality, the DMG is mostly about how to create campaigns or choose the campaign you want to run. So really, to me, it was the Dungeon Master's Guide. So I sent that to him. I didn't get a response back from him, but I thought that was my interesting response. That if you want an official campaign book, it really is the Dungeon Master's Guide these days.
Yeah. So, to make
because go back, especially as a dungeon master who not thinking of it from the idea of I want to know the rules, but go back and read the Dungeon Master Guide page by page as hey, I'm thinking about building a campaign. How should I do it? Then it becomes really interesting read. Like when I first read it, I was like, where's the rules? How do I know how to do grappling? How do I know, all these weird things? And none of that stuff was in there. That was all in the player's handbook. So
yeah, it's a lot of roll tables. I made a video a long time ago about how, like, if your players are like, I want to play D&D, and you're like, okay, we've got 4 hours, give them the player's handbook. They go and roll up characters. While they're rolling up characters, you grab the Dungeon Master's Guide, and there's roll tables in there to roll up a whole session of D&D. And you can, like, okay, you're in the forest, there's giants, there's bugbears, they're after a staff, there's a hill that has a crypt in it. I think we can play a game. And you just kind of go from there. And I thought, yeah, so it's a huge resource if you're looking to create scenarios and stuff, but a lot of people don't. I shouldn't say that. I'm not sure if the amount of people that tap into it, but like I personally don't tap into it as much as I could, I guess.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people miss it because they thought it was one thing, and so they set it aside because it wasn't the thing they thought they needed at the moment, but they don't remember to go back to it and say, oh, but it is this thing. So when I'm doing that, when I'm building a campaign, it was good. And I've been going back to it quite recently, fleshing out my campaign and using some of the things in it. It's just interesting. And I'm using campaign books. Like I'll grab something out of Acq Inc or I'll grab something out of any of the other, Ravnica stuff that I think is fun and pull it into my campaign. I really am enjoying and embracing the idea of grabbing things I like and throwing them into my big stew pot of a campaign I'm running where I can just do anything I want. I mean, it's just, every single time I think, oh, maybe I'm constrained and I can't do that, I realize, no, I'm not. I can do anything I want. I can do anything in this campaign. It's really cool. So that's the cool thing. I think everybody, as a recommendation, I'll probably do a video on it, but I'm starting to feel like a lot of my comments kind of called me out on it too. Is like they say, hey, every time you do a D&D book review, you say everybody should buy it. And I'm like, yeah, I know. There's not been any I don't like. I don't know what to say. I mean, I love the books. I don't know what to do. So maybe it shouldn't be a review. Maybe it should just be how much I like this book, and then let people do whatever they want to do. The other thing that was out, and I saw a Twitter picture of, I was thinking of Bad Eye, what's his name? Adam Bradford, who works for D&D Beyond. He had a picture of him picking up his D&D essentials off the shelf at Target. Though I know a few of our followers here, like Cyberwolf, went out and tried to find it at his Target, and it wasn't out yet. It's supposed to be out on Monday, officially, but apparently it's been out on some shelves, so some people can find it. I might run out and try to see if I can find it, because I definitely want the D&D Essentials. The more I read about it, the more I see what's in it. It does have the D&D Beyond thing in there. He took a picture of it because it says, hey, look, our D&D Beyond logo is on the thing, and I thought that was pretty funny. I didn't realize they were affiliated with it in some way, but they are. They have their brand is on it.
Is it because it's sealed that you get the adventure or something with D&D Beyond, I wonder? Or does it come bundled with?
I don't even know.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I want to buy it to find out what their involvement is. Because they are a separate company. They're not necessarily they're not Wizards of the Coast. So it is interesting. But I'm excited for that. D&D Essentials. We've been talking about it quite a bit. It has a new adventure that is a new starter box. I'm surprised they call it D&D Essentials. That was the one thing that threw me off. Because if I felt like I'm a new person, and here's the funny thing, I'll say this. I'm a new person in Dungeons & Dragons, and I go and I'm going to look for the thing I need to buy so that I can play, because I'm brand new, and I want to get my brand new friends who've never played either into it. And I know a lot of people in our audience are being like, what are you talking about? We all been playing. We know about this. But the reality is Dungeons & Dragons has never been brought to more new people than right now. Mm-hmm. There are more new people who've never played coming into the hobby than there ever was in any other time before now. So there's a large number of people that will go to a store shelf, look at all the D&D products, and have to say, okay, I want to try this. I need to grab one of these things to do it. What do I grab? So previously they've been grabbing probably the box set, the starter set, which makes sense. It says starter set. So somebody might say, okay, that's where I should start. D&D Essentials, does that kind of seem to you like, oh, I should grab that because that's how I should start?
I don't know. It's a weird word, essential, because it's like, is this essential to everybody's collection kind of a thing? And so I get what you're saying. But I also understand that they don't want to do numbers. They don't want like Player's Handbook 2, Player's Handbook 3, because then people go in and they're like, well, do I get the latest version of the Player's Handbook, the third one? They're like, no, you should get Player's Handbook 1. And it's like, but is that, and people were confused, so they got away from numbers. So I don't know. I think it's a logical next step from the starter set, though. Like if you play the starter set, you could either buy this to get another like fun adventure, rather than crafting your own. Maybe you're not ready for a Out of the Abyss or a Tomb of Annihilation or a Curse of Strahd, and so this is kind of like the next step for that. But what I'm most excited about is that we get another Chris Perkins adventure. Like I like Chris Perkins' writing, I like his stuff, and so that was what I was most excited about the Essentials kit, is that we're getting a new Chris Perkins adventure, something that he worked on, and he's just a really talented writer and stuff, so it makes good adventures. Yeah, but it is an adventure set that's 1 to 6, just like the starter set. So if your guys are 6th level, it's going to be a little weird to pick up the Essentials, though he says you can, and they built it that way. The other thing that was interesting about it is I feel like the way they mentioned it is they want it to be the new starter set. Yeah. Though you can use it in conjunction, and it was built to help a DM run a game, a new DM. The other starter set was not... was more for players, I think, than... Yeah, well, I think it was more like a regular adventure with pre-made character sheets, because in the starter set you didn't even have the rules to make a new character. In D&D Essentials, they put the rules to make a character, 4 of the classes, make a new character in the set, right in the book. It's one of the pamphlets. And then the other pamphlet is, hey, Mr. Dungeon Master, I know you're brand new, but here's this thing, and here's these things we're going to take all these players on, and it's going to be fun and great. Here we go. Let's start this right out. It's got the dice in it. It's got cards for magic items and all this other stuff. So I feel like it was a really more complete box, that it's the perfect starter set now. So I'm excited to get it. Even if I feel like the name is a little off-putting, maybe people will figure it out. Maybe just by word of mouth, people will say, hey, what should I go buy if I want to get into D&D? My answer is going to be go get D&D Essentials. Start there with your brand new party or your family members that you decided to talk into playing. Use that, and if you love it and they love it, then come back to me and I'll tell you all kinds of cool stuff and that you can go get and buy what's cool and with that. I think that's my new go-to. Here's where I think you should start. Or because previously to that, it was go buy the Player's Handbook, and you pretty much could play the game with nothing but the Player's Handbook, technically.
if you were a DM who was willing to go out and find monster stat blocks and build your own quick adventures, then you could just have the player's handbook and be good to go. So I think it was very interesting. I think I'm excited to look at it. I still want to try out. I'm still going to find somehow, I don't know when, because Jordan's schedule's super busy, but trying to play this one-on-one version that they say you can do with sidekicks, which I think would be super interesting and fun to do a one-on-one session. So I think that'd be cool. So that's out. Hopefully you guys go out and get it if you like it.
And if Lucian picks it up, we'll probably talk more about it next week when we can actually crack it open and get to know what's going on with it. So
yeah, I'll find out how D&D Beyond is involved.
Yeah.
So, and I noticed you kind of tweeted out that you had finally upped your subscription, or you got you did something with D&D Beyond recently.
Yeah, I bought the source book bundle and a
$200 bundle.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. I finally was just like, so I was buying a few little books to make a couple characters. And then I'm just like, you know what? I really am using this a lot. I'm just going to do it. So I went and bought the source book bundle and got the subscription for a year to be able to make unlimited characters. And so then I was like building a bunch of characters and stuff like that. And it's fun because I can use it at work and I can have all of the books online at work, which is really cool. Instead of like having a character idea, writing it down on a slip of paper, coming home, digging through my books to like make a character. I just kind of, basically I'm not working while I'm at work because I'm D&Ding while I'm at work. But no, I didn't buy any of the adventures, although I was tempted to get Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and maybe I will, because it would be kind of cool to have that book to reference while I'm prepping games and stuff, have it online. But yeah, no, I took the plunge. I was just like, I'm gonna try this out. And I did. And now no regrets. I'm just going to dive in and keep going. But
it is a great resource. I feel like I'm at that position now that I'm spending a lot of money on Dungeons and Dragons in the last year or two, because if you split it off with physical books that you're buying, if you're buying stuff for Roll20 so that you can play your games and campaigns on Roll20, and then I'm buying stuff for D&D Beyond because I like to have that if I go and sit at a table, or I like to have it on my iPad or whatever, and I keep a character. There's just a lot of ways to spend money on Dungeons and Dragons all of a sudden, and it feels like it's getting expensive for me.
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah, I could see that. I really like it because it doesn't allow me to cheat when I make characters, like accidentally cheat. Because sometimes like I'll be like, oh, I get this ability and I get this ability, and you put them together and you do this. And then with D&D Beyond, I built a couple of characters that I had previously built for other games, and they were just like, oh no, you can't do that. And then things that I forgot about where they're like, you actually have tool proficiencies in these 3 tools that I'm like, oh, I didn't even write down tool proficiencies on my other character. So yeah. I don't know. It's a fun playground, and 3 of my players use D&D Beyond at the table on their phones for their characters, and I might try it in the game that I'm in and actually use D&D Beyond. But, I'm playing a lot more. I want to play a lot more online games, and I like the idea of having my character on the screen in front of me rather than like the printed one that I drew, that I wrote out, and I'm trying to like I just like that. And I can, it automatically does a bunch of stuff for me. So I think for Jordan, it was the right purchase. I'm a D&D fanatic. I'm going to do more online stuff. It kind of just made sense. And I'm having a lot of fun building like random characters and just trying out things. And if we do this Acquisitions Incorporated game, or I don't know, I've got like 3 or 4 characters that I want to play now in the future. So
if you got some time, I'll run a game for you.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Well,
you'll find out why when we get to our news part, because one of my shows dropped off. So
oh no!
So I got an open slot to start doing something, which is a good thing because that means I can do some other stuff then. So it's bad and it's
yeah. Other things in news though is I guess we can touch on this briefly. So Descent into Avernus is apparently a prequel to Baldur's Gate 3, but this would have been hyped up more if it was a natural transition. Like if you played Descent into Avernus and then afterwards it just transitions directly into Baldur's Gate 3, like a direct transition, I feel like that would have been hyped up more. I think what they're actually saying is that there is a timeline to the Forgotten Realms, and Descent to Avernus is going to be before the events of Baldur's Gate 3. Because a lot of people were just like, oh my God, there's a tabletop tie-in to a video game. And I'm like, I don't think that's exactly what it is. I think they're just going along with the timeline of the Forgotten Realms. But we'll see when those come out. So I don't know.
Well, and I think it's from a story perspective, I think it'll make sense where they're going to pick up Baldur's Gate 3 and what they're going to be doing with some of the historical things that are happening just before that. We're going to Descent into Avernus is going to be, is going to give us some information on that. And I guess it'll be their take on how somebody went through that adventure. Like somebody must have gone to Avernus, did whatever, and came back probably. And now we're at the aftermath of that with the Baldur's Gate 3 game.
See, I don't
how
think
that's
so.
affected, but
yeah,
I don't know.
think they're going to be connected story-wise like that. But who knows? Like I could very well be wrong. But if I had to put money on it, I would say that it's just that this thing happened and then chronologically this thing is happening. And maybe when you play Baldur's Gate 3, there's going to be like some subtle nods to Descent into Avernus, but I don't know. I don't know.
Well, and the storyline is about Zariel. So I wonder if more storyline continues in Baldur's Gate 3 about Zariel.
I don't know.
We don't know what it's going to do yet. We don't know what the game is. It's going to be interesting. I wasn't a big I played Neverwinter Nights back in the day. That was the one I liked.
That's the one I liked too.
That was the one I liked the most. Though I dabbled in the other ones, but I'm sure I'll probably dive into Baldur's Gate 3 and see how that one goes, just because I'm on the big D&D kick. Because, I'm already buying the books and D&D Beyond and Roll20. Why not buy the digital games too?
Why not?
I got money just flowing everywhere, apparently.
And then there was a weird Kotaku article where Mike Mearls was basically saying, like, because of the events, because of Baldur's Gate 3 and trying to make the Ranger be fun in that game, they were talking about fixing the Ranger. And so it was like everyone was freaking out, like, oh, they're going to like revise the Ranger again. And then Jeremy Crawford came out on Twitter and said, no, I'm not. Mike Mearls was a little confused. We're actually doing this and this and this. He didn't say Mike Mearls was confused, but it kind of felt like that was the case. So everyone's like, are you doing it? Are you not? But it looks like the Ranger will get some more subclasses, just like all the other classes will get some more extra things that you can pick and choose from. But they're not changing the 5th edition Ranger, is according to Jeremy Crawford. But that was a rumor that was floating around for a little bit. So, and
I still feel like they don't believe the Ranger is broke.
No, and it isn't broken. It's how people are playing. So the Ranger was supposed to capitalize on that exploration side of the game. Unfortunately, most DMs are like, you're in a desert. You crossed the desert. Okay, that took 4 days. It was really tough, but you guys got through the desert. Well, then why did I choose a Ranger that's his special tundra is desert, like why did I choose all of this stuff that makes me really good at the desert if we don't even get to play in the desert? And that's the problem, is that dungeon masters are just hand waving travel when the Ranger really succeeded at aiding them in travel. So I see both sides, and really you should play the game however you want to play the game. But it makes the Ranger a little weaker if he doesn't get to do these cool Rangery things. So, or actually we had a Ranger in Hot Springs Island, and he said, because this is my preferred terrain, I have no trouble finding food. I have no trouble finding water. So we ended up just getting rid of all of the you guys need rations and you need this, because he was able to just automatically do that because of it was his terrain, his favorite terrain. And so I don't know, that was a situation where I'm like, actually, because you have a Ranger, we're not doing these extra cool things that we could be doing, So.
Right. Well, and it takes away some of the idea of it being tough to adventure if you have people that are like, because my groups will do it too. They'll have their Ranger will pick the favored land of the area we're going to be in for the campaign. Like if we go to Chult, somebody picks jungle.
Yeah.
Or they'll do the other thing with the Druid picks Goodberry, so we never have to worry about food and water. And so they kind of get rid of that. And I realize a lot of people don't want to play games where they track that kind of stuff. But then I feel like you never get the feeling of how hard it is to travel in a jungle if we're just hand waving all that stuff and we're never dealing with it. So I always think there's a weird balance there of what do I want to do, but what do I want to keep fun, what's not fun as far as keeping track of things like rations. Are you keeping track of rations in your Saltmarsh game right now?
No. Yeah, because it's never been an appeal to me. I'm like, they return back to town so much that I'm kind of like, you guys took enough rations for like the 3 days you're going to be out adventuring, but you're going to return back to town. I am doing lifestyle costs though. So if they want to take a week of downtime because of whatever their lifestyle is, they'll have to pay like 2 gold, 1 gold, 1 silver to have that daily. So like I'm like, if you guys want to take a week of downtime to craft potions, to do this, to do downtime activities, it's going to cost you money, because I didn't want them to just like not have a money drain, I guess.
Right.
So, but we haven't really gotten to that yet. But I was like, if you get back to Saltmarsh and you want to do downtime activities, it costs you extra money. So.
So it'll be interesting. Not that, and I built a ranger using the book, Player's Handbook, Beastmaster Ranger, and I thought it was fun to play. Mm-hmm. I never felt like any of the other characters were more powerful than me. I felt pretty good playing it. So I don't feel like, I feel like it's something that could be adjusted or made a little bit better, but I don't feel like it's broken.
Yeah.
Right. And I know we've talked about it in many, many episodes about where we stood on, where it's at. And if they buff it, I'm good with that too, because I love a pet class anyways. And if they leave it the way it is, I felt like I was able to play a pretty good. Mm-hmm. I played a gnomish ranger that was really fun. And I just thought I had a really good time playing it. And in some ways, playing the fish out of water character is pretty fun. I'm the desert ranger, but hey, we're going to the jungle. So now I'm really out of my element. I could role play that up. Sounds fun to me too. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, I did notice an article. I always keep an eye out, and when I see an Eberron article, I always say, I'm gonna throw that in the notes for Jordan, because I know how much you love Eberron. I did notice a really in-depth article talking about the elves of Eberron by Keith Baker, and not only did he kind of go back in and start talking about what the elves of Eberron are and the history, but he also kind of answered questions about several sources of other Eberron information that may have seemed like it conflicted, but he kind of cleared up how it didn't necessarily conflict and how it actually does work. Because there's like a book called there were 2 other sources people were asking about. He has a big Q&A at the bottom of the article. Maybe what we'll do is in the notes we'll post the actual piece. But what I thought was interesting is, for a person who has had the lucky chance to create their campaign, and D&D supported it and has published it, he's went back and said, here's some stuff. Like, we don't get Q&As with the people that have created Forgotten Realms. We don't get Q&As with Gary Gygax these days anymore because, for Greyhawk. But it's cool that Keith Baker's out there saying, yeah, here's some, if you want to know about this stuff, here it is. And I just thought it was interesting. I was trying to find what those 2 books were. There was the...
Although Ed Greenwood is very active on Twitter, and if you ask him cool Forgotten Realms questions, he usually answers. He's really cool.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna have to
really
start following.
Cool. Yeah.
Something about the Dragon Shard article has a lot of information if you're looking for information on elves. And there was some other... I want to find the book, because I was wondering if you had read this book or not.
Maybe. I don't know.
And now I can't find it. I should have put it in the notes, but something about Ion Eberron article. No, that's not it. I thought there was another book out there. Something about like the magic of Eberron, or MOE, I think was the abbreviation I was seeing. So I didn't know there was another big source book out there besides the Eberron source. Like, how many source books did they do because it was in 4th edition.
3rd and 4th edition. Out, right? They made a couple of adventures, I think, and then 2 large source books for 3rd and 4th edition. So
there it is. Magic of Eberron was a book. Yeah, that's what it was. And there was a bunch of information in there that people were looking at, but it conflicted with some other articles that had gotten put out, or at least people thought they did. And he goes and clears up how it did. Like the war between the elves and the giants and stuff like that. So very interesting if you're into Eberron. I've not got into an Eberron campaign yet, but now that I've kind of read his idea on the elves, it's definitely an interesting take on the elves. I didn't even realize, because I never even have played an Eberron campaign.
Yeah, I really I think it was goblins were like, they're not like disgusting low intelligence creatures that live in caves. In Eberron, goblins once had a huge civilization, and so it's very different than Forgotten Realms. Like, it's not, and I like that a lot about Eberron, is that everybody's just different. Elves are different, so not everybody's just living in the woods being a happy elf or living underground being a drow. They live on their own private island and things like that, and it's cool. So. Well, we've got 20 minutes left, Lucian. What did you do in games?
Can we do it? Yeah, well, and we played 2 games.
We played 2 weeks worth of games, yeah.
So I'll keep mine pretty short. Monday nights have been my Seeking Revenor, which has restarted again. Yay. I've got a really fantastic group of players that are diving into Port Bastion has been destroyed and being rebuilt. They know all the forces that are arrayed around them. They're just having to pick which ones to go after first, right? Because they can't do it all. So I really like this idea that there's a lot going on and they have to make choices. And those choices will be good because they'll stop one thing from happening, but it's also going to allow some other things to happen. So it's like, I love this really intricate web that I've weaved in the background of this. We played another thing that just constantly surprises me. I threw at them 3 or 4 CR3 creatures. So, and they're all level 4. So I had 4 players, 4th level. Normally, even one CR4 would be a creature that could take on, a 4th level party.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of CR3s, but maybe not. Maybe like a CR3 and some other stuff could take on a 4. I threw 4 CR3s at them, and they had a hard fight, but they beat them. And these adventuring parties are powerful. It is so crazy how they're able to pull stuff off. And it's really interesting. It's been happening to me a lot, and it's happening to the DM that I'm playing with quite a bit too. My rolls in every single game I play start hot, and to the point that my players are like, "Oh my God, we're TPKing. This is it. This is it. We're over." And then by round 3, my rolls go cold, completely cold, and the players' rolls just start hitting their 20s, and they start hitting their big stuff, and all this stuff's going on, and their rolls are really good, and they pull it off. But at the end of it, they always think like I'm trying to kill them, because in that very beginning, my rolls are so hot and theirs are so bad that it feels like, oh, he's just trying to kill us. He's just trying to get us the dice that are doing it. And it's weird because it's never different. It's always I roll really good in rounds 1 and 2, and then all rounds after that, I roll terribly. Like, I won't even get a character. I won't damage a character. Nothing seems to work right. But in rounds 1 and 2, I hammer them. Like, I send a guy down to like 1 HP in one shot type stuff happens. And they're just like, oh my God, we're going to die. We're going to die. And then it all turns around. So it's still funny to me how swingy the game is, how the dice can really affect everything that's going on, no matter what you're thinking about doing. And CR is out the window for me at this point. My party is a group of veteran players who know how to synergize their skills, know how to maneuver, know how to make things happen using the environment. They're very tactical and strategic, and they are just a double CR at this point. I have to throw double CR at them even to make it tough. So it's been fun. They also are now going into in this Revenant area, I have set up 2 dungeons, 1 mega dungeon, 1 mini dungeon, which is the one they're going to now, about a 3-level kind of dungeon, and then 1 big open city map that's kind of like a dungeon, but it's like an own ruined city, and it's going to be like a dungeon, but it's all on 1 level-ish kind of thing. And so they're tackling the 3-level one, so it's fun to create this really concise. It's a monastery on the top. There's something going on in the bottom, and then there's something going really bad at the very bottom. So a nice 3-level thing. Very Diablo-esque, very inspiration has been pulled from Diablo. So a lot of demons, a lot of devils and skeletons and undead stuff, but also some cool things. And not only did I pick up that Acq Inc book just to throw them a few curveballs, I picked up Tomb of Beasts from Kobold Press, and I'm looking through here at all these crazy cool characters that they are going to have no idea what they are. Because I am playing with a group that knows the monster manual backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
Like, they're that type of player. So to surprise them with something, like I'll have something that I've created, like, in fact, I use these Beastmen, and I described them, and they thought, oh, they're like this thing. And when I was fighting them, they're like, wait a minute, they have that many hit points? I thought they only had like 50 hit points or something like that. So I always have to be careful with my group that I'm always throwing little curveballs in there that they don't know exactly. My stuff's a little bit different. So this would be nice to have a whole nother book that none of them have read to go, oh, what is this thing?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let me tell you about this thing that's ripping your head off at the moment.
Tome of Beasts is great.
So
and I bought the other one too, Creature Codex.
That's the next one I'm going to get.
They're both really good. Although I will warn you that the monsters in those seem to be a little tougher than the ones in the monster manual. So if you do throw like 3 CR3 creatures at them, monster manual, they might have been fine. But Tome of Beasts, I feel like they're just a little more difficult. But they're really, really, it's a good book. Like they did a good job with those 2 books. So
I also like that one of the creators on here is Dan Dillon. Dan Dillon now works for Wizards of the Coast, which is cool. We've seen him transition over, so that's cool. And there's a bunch of cool people here: Chris Harris, Rodrigo Garcia, Wolfgang Bauer, and Steve Winter. All names that are in kind of the Cobalt Press area doing cool stuff. And it's big. They didn't make a little monster manual. They made
it's huge.
429 page monster. This is worth the price of admission. I think that's pretty good. So that's going on great. If you want to come out and watch that on Monday nights, that's great. We had some streaming difficulties with our browsers updated, and then I couldn't get Streamlabs to work, but I got all that fixed. We're ready to play again this Monday night. The players are excited, and they're about to get into the monastery and see what's going on. Maybe stop this evil from happening. So that'll be super fun. I've also played on Wednesdays. I play Tomb of Annihilation, so we had 2 sessions of that. We're still in the portion where I'm in areas that I already know, so I take a back seat and make sure I don't give my players the hints or clues. My other party members, I let them kind of take the lead. But I'm really, really, really enjoying a 7th level war mage that I've created. I'm like really growing attached to this character. This might be my favorite character right now. It might have taken the place of anything else because it's just so fun. A very elementalist feel to it. All the things I'm picking are either fire, lightning, or ice based. And we just hit 7th level, so I had to agonize over my spells to pick because I get 2. When you go up another level, you get 2 more spells of the spell slot you get. And I just hit the 4th level spell slot, one of those. So I had to look at the 4th level spells. So my question was, I took summon minor elementals because I want to keep that elementalist kind of feel to my character. But I broke a little bit of the mold here, and I went polymorph as my 2nd spell to take because I think it's such a cool, fun spell to deal with. But how is when Jordan levels up in that level 7, level 8, or any character where you finally get to 4th level spells or 5th level spells, how long does it take you to pick your spells? Are you just like, I know exactly the ones I want and I pick the same ones for all my characters because I've already worked out what are the best spells to have? Do you go more thematic and make sure you're picking spells that match the character? How long does it take you to build?
It takes a while. It takes a while. Like I overthink it a whole bunch. And I will heavily always lean towards thematic spells. Like what am I trying to do? So if I'm a conjurer or wizard, I'm going to go for some kind of conjuring spell because I want to keep with the theme of my wizard. And if I'm a druid, if I'm a swamp druid, I'm going to go with the theme of my swamp druid and get like weird swampy, like talk to plants. I don't know, something that's probably not super useful, but I'm going to take well, I guess with a druid, you can just change them every time that you take a long rest. But like with wizards and bards and things like that, I'll usually go with a thematic stuff. Like, and like
warlocks and stuff.
Definitely like things like that. So, and I think about it a lot because like when my Eldritch Knight, every time I got new spells, I would like heavily overthink it. I'm to a point now with my Eldritch Knight that I kind of know the spells I'm going to take for the next like 4 or 5 levels if I ever get to that point. But that's because I've like super agonized over it already. And I'm just like, no, I really think it's going to be Mage Hand. That's the next cantrip I'm going to get, you know? So
yeah. I need a new cantrip. I messed myself up. I took way too many spells that are concentration, which is number one. they're all cool spells and I want them, but man, you can't have more than one at any given time.
Yep.
My only hope is I have one of those DMs that throws in a cool magic item that lets me do 2 concentration spells or something. Other than that, I have no hope. I have to juggle what I want to keep concentration up on and drop this. And so it's fun for me to agonize through that. But I picked a cantrip. That's my damaging cantrip. I picked Bonfire, but that's concentration also. So that's really messing me up right now. And I don't get a new cantrip until level 10 maybe, or it's a while before you get another wizard cantrip. You start with a good set, but after that, it doesn't change very much in that respect for the wizard. So I'm waiting for my next one because I need a better cantrip. So hopefully we hit 8, and I got to take my stat level or maybe a feature, maybe a feat to get me what I need. That might also happen to see. So those games are great. My Thursday night game, Horde of the Dragon Queen, has canceled, which happens. DMs, they start games, players start games, the schedules start to get really wonky, or it gets to be a lot to run a weekly game. And he was streaming it too, which is always feels like there's more pressure, I think, on you if you're going to run a streamed show, because you feel like you have to run every week and you feel like you have to do these things. And I think it puts extra pressure on you. And I think it did for him too, because he was a new DM. So that one got canceled out. So I got a freed up Thursday slot that I'm going to have to start looking around. Do I want to play, or do I want to DM something? And what do I want to DM? Because I feel like 3 games a week was my good sweet spot. So that was what I had done. I'm looking forward to Monday and Wednesday coming up. I'm enjoying the characters I'm playing. I'm enjoying the games I'm running. I have good parties playing in them, which is really cool. But what about Jordan's gaming? I left you 10 minutes or 9-ish, depending on how far you stretch it. What about Jordan's 2 weeks of gaming?
I'm playing in a BX, which is Basic Expert D&D, a BX D&D game, which is the original D&D. I don't think it's updated, so it's like 1970s, early 1980s or something. I should know more about it. I've died twice, and so now I'm on my 3rd character. And if you're interested in that, we stream on Saturdays, not this Saturday because it's canceled because we had a bunch of people that couldn't make it. But usually we stream on Saturdays at, I think, 2 p.m. Anyway, 2 p.m. Pacific, I think. But it's a really fun game, and we're having a lot of fun with that. But the big news is I had my Wednesday night game, and it was my first TPK. I killed everybody. And I've never had this happen before. And one person permanently died because they failed their death saves. And so they're now making a new character. The rest of them were either stabilized or got their death saves okay. So now I have this... I don't know. I've got these dead people, these unconscious people that I think are going to become prisoners or something. But I have like a week and a half or so to kind of figure out like where I want to take the adventure. But Ghost of Saltmarsh did not prepare me for a TPK, and now I kind of have to like make it up as I go, which is really fun and exciting as a dungeon master. But the interesting fallout from this is. The interesting fallout from this is, your players are disappointed when this happens. And a lot of times they start over-analyzing the game to be like, what caused this to happen? Like, what bad decisions did I make? What bad decisions did this? Was the DM just out to get us? Like what happened? And from this, I have learned a really important lesson that I'm going to kind of try to tell a story and wrap that lesson into the end. My players died in this TPK by taking a short rest where they had used all of their rages, most of their spell slots. They basically didn't have anything left, so they should have taken a long rest, but it was still in the middle of it was still too early to take a long rest, so they decided to press on. They went and they met with the enemy, who didn't like straight up attack them, but was talking back and forth. But my players knew that these were the bad guys. They could just like sense it. And so knowing that these were the bad guys, they had the opportunity to attack them right there, but they decided to like try to convince them that they were on the same side. So I have these pirates that are smuggling things, and they decided to be smuggling inspectors. And so they're like, well, I want to do a persuasion check to try to persuade them that we're on their side. And I'm like, well, okay, like they kind of know that you're not, because who has smuggling inspections like that? But okay, I'll let you roll. And so they rolled a really high persuasion check. And then my next player was like, well, I want to intimidate them so that they're scared of us, so that they won't attack us. And I'm like, okay, like they kind of know. Sure, I guess you can roll an intimidation check. So he rolls an intimidation check, and he does fairly high. Both of those checks weren't high enough in the DC that Jordan set in his brain to really conflict them to turn the tables, I guess, to be like, oh yes, we absolutely believe your lie because you rolled a 20, or, you rolled a 17 on your persuasion check, or on your, what is it called? Deceitful check? What am I thinking of? Deception. Thank you. On your deception check. But at the same time, there were other things that happened in this haunted house that they're exploring that these guys know that they don't belong here. Like, they 100% know that they don't belong here. So because of that intimidation check, I was like, no, he's a little intimidated. They definitely don't want to fight you. So he says, why don't you come to me to this other room and we'll talk some more? And my players said, oh, okay, sure, we'll go with you. Well, the other room had 2 hobgoblin reinforcements. So now I had 6 against 5 players. And that's when, like, I'm like, all right, let's lay everything on the table. I know that you guys aren't these inspectors. I know this. I don't know what you're doing here, but I can't let you leave because you've seen too much. And a fight happened. The fight did not go very well, obviously. And we had a TPK. So one of my players was saying, I don't know. I feel like we shouldn't have gotten in that fight because we did really good with our deception and we did really good with our intimidation checks. And because of going back earlier, everybody's overanalyzing this fight and overanalyzing the situation because of the TPK. They would have had a great time if they had won, but because they didn't, they're kind of thinking like, what did we do wrong, kind of a thing. And I guess, so my whole point is that comes back on the Dungeon Master. Was it my fault? Was it their fault? Who's really to blame? Should anybody be to blame? Is that just the game? But ultimately, I was thinking, as a dungeon master, I always want to learn, and I want to take away from a situation and be like, what should I have done? And I think the mistake that Jordan made is don't allow or don't ask for rolls when you know that they don't have a chance for success. And in their mind, they had a chance for intimidation as a success. And in my mind, I'm like, you really don't, because they're kind of in control of this situation. You caught them off guard, but they're not going to believe you. Don't allow for a deception roll when they know that they don't belong here. So I don't know. That was my takeaway from this, is that you shouldn't ask for rolls or allow rolls when you know that there isn't a chance for success. But yeah, what do you think about this crazy situation?
Yeah, I'm a few things jump out to me that I'm thinking if it's happening to me. One thing that I know has been a little bit of a DM pet peeve for me is when players try to say, I want to do a deception roll. They don't let me decide when is it time to make a roll and when is it not time to roll. They're just like, I want to make a deception roll. So, and they just start rolling dice, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, whoa. What do you mean you're going to try to deceive? What are you going to try to deceive? No, I'm just going to make a deception roll, and then they'll believe me no matter what it is. I don't even have to worry about what the lie is. And me, I'm thinking, no. Tell me what your lie is, because I need to know if this is even going to be possible. And I thought number 2
you can't
was
just be like, we're all clowns, and I'm actually a bird. I'm going to roll a deception roll. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're a bird. Wow. Like, that doesn't work like that. Yeah,
it doesn't work that way. So I always want to be very controlling of when we're going to make skill check rolls. And I'm only going to call it after you tell me how you're going to try to do this thing. Like, you have to kind of tell me. Now, I get that we don't make the person who makes a strength check prove to us that they can do something strong. So why do we make the person who's going to be very charismatic make the player try to be as charismatic as their character? But I do need you to explain to me, hey, my character's really good at this. He's really persuasive. And the thread I want to tie into this is this idea of, can he convince them of this thing? Or can she convince them this way? And now I have something to work with. And then I can decide, yeah, let's make a roll or let's not make a roll or whatever's going to happen. The next thing that I thought was interesting is, well, we made a high roll, so we should have succeeded. But I'm thinking, how do you know what a high roll is?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have given a few of my players who've come up with crazy, hey, I'm on a flying dragon, I'm holding on to it. Can I grab its wings and make it start to fly into the ground to damage itself? And I'm thinking, this is a crazy kind of thing. He's like, I want to make like an athletics check kind of thing, and I'm just going to steer this dragon into the ground that I'm riding, you know, anime style at this point. It's already gotten crazy, right? And I'm just thinking, okay, it's going to be a really high DC. And when I said that, in my mind, I said, you can roll whatever you want. You can have as many bonuses as you want. You can have as much help as you want. If you don't roll a natural 20, it ain't happening.
Right.
And
like,
so in my mind,
you're sitting in your mind, you're like 20, 25 or 27 is how high you need to reach this. Yeah.
Natural 20. That doesn't mean if you roll, and I roll a 19, that's really good. That's not it. You're talking about doing impossible stuff or stuff that can't actually be done. So that was the next thing that I thought. But I do sympathize with the players, because I've been in the instance where my player character died, and then I look back and I look at the DM and I'm like, well, you railroaded me into that. How there was nothing else I could do to not have that happen. What was I supposed to do in that? You know, there was, I died. What? And if I don't feel like I had an avenue, if it's not clear that, okay, I had this choice, and when I made it, that's what caused my death. If I can't point to that, then as a player, and I've fallen prey to this, I start thinking, oh, my DM railroaded me, or didn't give me a chance, or give me the options, or why didn't it give me a chance to run? Like, nowhere in there was this, oh my God, this is going bad, we should just bail out. But my DM wasn't going to let me bail out. Like, there was nothing to do. So it's hard, I think, on both routes. But I think if we're players and characters, we all have to roll with the story. If the story doesn't go the way you thought it was going to go, as much as you love your character and you're enjoying what's going on, sometimes just have to say, you know what? That's life. Let's move on to the next thing. This is fun. This is super cool. Well, and that's how the tragic death happened. It's great.
That was another thing, is like, the stakes have to be real. Like, if you win all of the time, then there's no like tension for when you are in a situation like this. So that was another point that I brought up, and they agree. And like I said, only one of them permanently died. He's rolling a new character. The rest of them are, it's just changing the story about how their future is going to interact. But yeah, I don't know. I've been playing D&D for like 4 or 5 years, and this is my first TPK. So
yeah. So some are unconscious, and a dead character can be brought back.
Correct. Yeah.
So
they're level 2. So if they have his body and they can take him to a temple and they've got a bunch of money, they could potentially bring him back. But yeah.
Or they could have somebody pay for it, and then they owe somebody, and that leads the story on later, because they owe a favor to somebody more powerful, which is what I've done in the past too. So even a death doesn't have to end everything. I think that's the good. I'm sure you did this. I'm not saying you didn't, but that's a great time to talk to your player and say, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
If you really want, if this character is your favorite character and you don't want, like, if your wife's character died and you're like, don't worry, the party's going to get you, resurrect you. We can continue on. We're still going to have a cool story. I always like to have that for my players too. So there's usually something that can happen, but I try to talk them into, let that character die and do a new one, because that's cool too. That's just as fun. And that's a great story to tell also.
So yeah, so that was it. I learned something. It was an experience. It was a lot of fun. And I mean, that's the whole point of the show, is just how do we become better dungeon masters, and how do you learn from your mistakes and learn from situations and things like that? Like, what did we make the right call? Did we not make the right call? Like, things like that. And that's about it. I probably won't be playing D&D for a little bit, so maybe Lucian and I can think of something to do on Thursday night. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to throw together a one-shot or something, because
that'd be fun.
People are getting married and other stuff is happening, so like my D&D group is a little in flux at the moment. But anyway, that's our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Until then, keep DMing, leave iTunes reviews, and go be awesome dungeon masters. So yeah, we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.